Ellen Singer stood in the kitchen doorway and watched her granddaughter push the plate away without touching it. "Baby, you need to eat something." "I'm not hungry, Grandma." The little girl's eyes stayed fixed on the front window, on the driveway beyond it, on nothing at all. "Daddy might call tonight. I want to hear the phone." Ellen had heard that sentence more times than she could count since the funeral. Her daughter had been gone 3 months now, and in that time, Kang Bo-yung had called his own child maybe a handful of times. Always rushed, always through someone else first. Tonight, Ellen decided, would be different. She waited until the girl was finally asleep, curled up on the couch with the photograph still in her small hand, before she picked up her phone and dialed the number she rarely used. Bo-young's private line, not the assistant, not the scheduler, him. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice clipped, distracted, the sound of other people talking somewhere behind him. "Ellen, is something wrong?" "Wrong." She said the word slow, like she was tasting it. "Your daughter didn't eat dinner tonight because she was waiting to hear this phone ring. That's what's wrong." There was a pause. She could hear him step away from whatever room he was in, a door closing, the background noise falling off. "I'm in the middle of something important right now." "More important than your child? That's not fair." "Fair?" Ellen almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk to me about fair, Bo-yung? My daughter is gone. And your daughter is sitting by a window every single night, like she's waiting on a bus that stopped running." He didn't answer right away. She pictured him the way she always did now, standing somewhere expensive and empty, surrounded by people who worked for him and nobody who actually knew him. "She's safe with you," he finally said. "That's what matters right now. I'm giving her time to adjust." "Adjust?" Ellen shook her head, even though he couldn't see it. "Bo-yung, she's 6 years old. She's not adjusting. She's waiting. There's a difference, and you know it." "I call when I can. You call when your assistant tells you it's a good time to call. That's not the same thing as being her father." She heard him breathe out, slow, like he was trying to keep something down. "I don't know what you want me to say, Ellen." "I don't want you to say anything. I want you to come see her. I want you to sit in that room and let her show you her drawings and tell you about her day, the way she used to tell her mother." Ellen's voice caught, just slightly, and she hated that it did. "Your daughter hasn't stopped waiting for you. Not for one single day. She has everything she needs. She has a house full of toys and a grandmother who loves her, and none of that is you." Ellen closed her eyes. Money isn't what she's waiting on. She's waiting on her father. Silence again. Longer this time. She almost thought the call had dropped. "I can't," he said finally, so quiet she barely caught it. "Can't what?" "I can't walk into that house right now." His voice cracked somewhere in the middle of the sentence, and he stopped it before it could go any further. "Everything in there is hers, my wife's, her books, her side of the closet, the way she used to leave her shoes right by the door, like she'd be right back for them. I haven't been in my daughter's room since the funeral, because that whole hallway still smells like her mother." Ellen sat down slow at the kitchen table, the anger in her chest shifting into something heavier, something that felt more like recognition than she wanted to admit. But she wasn't ready to let him off that easy, not with a little girl sleeping 30 feet away, with a photograph still in her hand. "Then what do you think your little girl sees," Ellen said, "when you stay away?" Bo-yung didn't answer. He didn't say a word, and in that silence, Ellen understood something she hadn't let herself believe until now. He wasn't avoiding his daughter because he didn't love her. He was avoiding her because loving her hurt too much to face. But knowing why didn't change what it was doing to a 6-year-old girl still waiting by a window every single night. Bo-yung stayed on the line after Ellen's question. She could hear him breathing, could hear the faint hum of a room he hadn't left yet. "She still waits for you," Ellen said again, quieter this time. Not an accusation, just the truth, laid flat on the table between them. "I wait too," Bo-yung said. Ellen didn't answer right away. It was the first honest thing he'd said to her since the funeral. "Then stop waiting," she said. "Call her. Not through Mrs. Han, not through the office. You call your daughter yourself, right now, and you talk to her like her father. It's late there. She's not asleep. She never falls asleep before 9. You'd know that if you'd been paying attention. Ellen walked to the couch where the girl lay curled up, the photograph still tucked against her chest. I'll wake her, but I'm not telling her what to say to you. Whatever happens on this call, it's between the two of you. Ellen, that's the deal, Bo-yung. Take it or leave it. He took it. Ellen woke her granddaughter gently and handed her the phone, then stepped back far enough to give them privacy, but close enough to watch. The girl sat up slow, rubbing her eyes, and when she heard her father's voice, something in her small shoulders went stiff. Hi, Daddy. Hi. A pause. Have you been eating? Grandma says you skipped dinner. I wasn't hungry. You need to eat. It's important. His voice had gone formal, careful, like he was reading from a list someone had prepared for him. Are you sleeping okay? Yeah. Ellen watched her granddaughter's face go quiet in a way she recognized. Not calm. Closed. That's good, Bo-yung said. That's good, honey. There was a long stretch where neither of them said anything. Ellen could hear him on the other end, trying to find a next sentence and failing. He didn't ask about her drawings. He didn't ask about the photograph she carried everywhere. He didn't say her mother's name, not once, and the silence where that name should have been sat heavy enough that even a 6-year-old could feel it. Daddy, are you coming home? Another pause, longer than the last. I'm very busy right now, but soon. The girl looked down at the phone in her hand, like it had stopped being useful to her. Okay, she said. Bye, Daddy. She hung up before he could answer. Ellen took the phone back gently and pressed it to her own ear. Bo-yung. His voice came through rougher now, the careful formality gone. She hung up on me. She's protecting herself. She's 6 years old and she's already learning not to expect too much from you. Do you understand what that means? He didn't answer. She's asked you to come home before, hasn't she? Ellen said. It wasn't really a question. The silence that followed told her everything. Several times, he admitted finally. I never knew what to say back. So you said nothing. I didn't want to promise something and break it. You already have, Bo-yung. Every time you don't answer. Ellen sat down at the kitchen table, tired in a way that had nothing to do with the hour. You want to fix this with a phone call and a list of questions about dinner. That's not what she needs. Then tell me what she needs. Ellen looked toward the couch, toward the small shape of her granddaughter pretending to already be asleep again. Tomorrow, she said. Don't give her an answer. Give her your presence. Bo-yung came the next afternoon, in a plain car, without the 2 men who usually followed him everywhere. Ellen watched from the porch as he stepped out, and for the first time since the funeral, he looked like a man instead of a headline. She's inside, Ellen said, napping. You've got some time before she wakes up. Good. He stood there a moment, hands in his pockets, looking at the house like it might ask something of him he wasn't ready to give. Ellen studied him. 3 months of watching a little girl wait by a window had worn something down in her, but looking at Bo-yung now, she felt it shift into something else. Not forgiveness, not yet, just a willingness to see him clearly. Come in, she said. There's something you need to hear before she wakes up. She led him to the small office off the kitchen, the room where she kept things she hadn't figured out what to do with yet. A shoebox sat on the desk, and inside it, a phone that had belonged to her daughter. She left something for you, Ellen said. A recording. She made it about a month before she died, when she already knew how sick she was getting. She asked me to give it to you if she thought you needed it. Ellen paused. I think you need it. Bo-yung's jaw tightened. Ellen, I don't know if I can. I'm not asking if you can. I'm telling you it's time. She pressed play and set the phone on the desk between them. His wife's voice filled the small room, warm and ordinary, nothing like the goodbye he must have been bracing for. She talked about how their daughter still wanted pancakes shaped like stars, even though she was getting too old for it. She talked about the song their daughter hummed under her breath whenever she got nervous before a test. She talked about the way the girl ran straight for her father's legs whenever she got scared, faster than she ran for anyone else, because somehow, even at 6, she already understood that her father was the safest place in any room. Bo-yung sat down slow, like his legs had stopped being something he could trust. She knew, he said, barely above a whisper. She knew I'd do this, that I'd disappear. She didn't say disappear. Ellen kept her voice steady. She just knew you loved that little girl enough to be terrified of losing her too. He put his head in his hands. When he spoke again, his voice had cracked open completely. Every time she looks at me, I see her mother dying. I see the hospital room. I see everything I couldn't stop. He looked up at Ellen, eyes red. I thought if I stayed away, I could keep that room in my head and let her have a father who wasn't falling apart every time he looked at her. She's already seeing it, Ellen said quietly. The falling apart. She just doesn't have you there to help her understand what it means. Neither of them heard the small footsteps in the hallway until the girl was already standing in the doorway, her hair still messy from her nap, her face tight with an anger too old for her years. I don't want you to fix anything, she said, looking straight at her father. I just want you to stop leaving. Bo-yung stood there, and for the first time, he understood that coming home was not going to be one conversation, one recording, one apology. It was going to be every single day after this one, proving to a little girl who had already stopped believing him that he meant it this time. 3 days later, Bo-yung came back to Ellen's house with a suitcase in the trunk of his car. He had told himself the whole drive over that he would walk in, tell his daughter he loved her, and bring her home where she belonged. His daughter had other plans. She stood in the doorway of her room, arms crossed, and looked at the suitcase in his hand like it was an insult. I'm not going. Sweetheart, I came to bring you home. This is my home, Grandma's house. She didn't move from the doorway. You don't get to just show up and decide that. Ellen stayed back in the hallway, close enough to hear everything, but she didn't step in. This one was his to carry. Bo-yung set the suitcase down slow, like he understood, maybe for the first time, that force wasn't going to work here. Not with her. Not anymore. Okay, he said. I won't make you come with me today, but can you tell me what you need? From me, I mean, not what I think you need, what you actually need. She studied him for a long moment, like she was deciding whether the question was even worth answering. I need you to stop saying you'll call and then not calling, she said. You said you'd call on my birthday. Mrs. Han called instead. You said you'd come see my school play. You didn't come. Her voice wasn't loud. It was worse than loud. It was flat, like she'd stopped expecting anything different a long time ago. I don't want more promises. I remember all of them. Bo-yung sat down on the floor outside her door, right there in the hallway, because standing over her suddenly felt wrong. You're right, he said. I made promises I didn't keep. That's on me, not you. Why didn't you come? He thought about lying. About saying work, about saying the board, about saying anything that sounded easier than the truth. But he was tired of easy answers that had already cost him 3 months of his daughter's trust. Because every time I thought about walking into that school and seeing you up there, I thought about your mom. She should have been the one sitting in that audience, and I couldn't figure out how to be there without her. He looked down at his hands. That's not a good enough reason. I know that now. For the first time, his daughter's arms loosened slightly at her sides. I miss her too, she said quietly, every day. I know. But you're still here, and I need you to act like it. Bo-yung nodded, and something in his chest that had been locked tight for 3 months finally gave way. He pulled out his phone right there in the hallway, called his assistant, and canceled the trip to Singapore he'd been avoiding thinking about all week. He told her to inform the board he'd be restructuring his schedule, effective immediately, and that his daughter came first from now on. His daughter watched him do it, and something in her face shifted, though she didn't run to him. She wasn't ready for that yet. Will you be here tomorrow morning? She asked. Not on the phone. Here. Yes, Bo-yung said. I'll be here. She looked past him, toward Ellen standing in the hallway. Grandma, do you think he'll really come? Ellen looked at her granddaughter, then at Bo-yung, who was still sitting on the floor like a man who had finally understood what the ground under him was supposed to feel like. We'll find out tomorrow, Ellen said. The girl woke before the sun was fully up, the way she always did now, and padded to her bedroom door out of habit more than hope. Bo-yung was sitting on the floor outside it, his back against the wall, a cup of coffee gone cold beside him. She stopped in the doorway and just looked at him. You're here. I'm here. He didn't stand up right away, didn't reach for her, didn't ask if she was happy to see him. He just stayed where he was, at her level, close enough that she could choose to come to him or not. I told you I would be. She didn't run to him. She didn't say anything about yesterday, or the missed calls, or the birthday message that came from someone else. She just sat down next to him on the floor, her small shoulder against his arm, and after a moment, she leaned her head there too. Neither of them said much. That was fine. Ellen had told him once that presence wasn't a speech. It was just staying. The weeks that followed weren't easy, and Bo-yung didn't pretend they were. He missed a video call once, caught in a meeting that ran long, and when he called back 20 minutes later, his daughter's voice was cool and careful again, testing whether this was the beginning of the old pattern. He didn't argue with her about it. He just showed up the next morning, and the morning after that, until careful stopped being her only setting. He moved his office hours around school pickup. He learned which cereal she actually liked, not the one Mrs. Han had always ordered. He sat through a school play he almost didn't survive, watching his daughter on stage in a costume her mother would have loved, and he cried in a folding chair in the third row and did not leave. One evening, months into all of it, she brought him a shoebox full of photographs. Her mother laughing in the kitchen, her mother pregnant, hand on her belly, squinting into the sun. Her mother holding a baby that would grow into the girl now sitting cross-legged on the floor beside him. Tell me about her, she said. Things I don't know. So he did. He told her about the year her mother learned to make kimchi from his own grandmother and burned 3 batches before getting it right. He told her about the terrible singing voice her mother was so proud of anyway. He didn't flinch through any of it, even when his voice caught, even when it hurt. Ellen watched all of this happen slowly, from a distance she'd chosen for herself. She still came by most weeks. She still kept a key, but she was no longer the one holding the whole family together by herself, and there was a kind of peace in that she hadn't expected to feel. On an ordinary afternoon, she let herself in through the side door and paused outside the living room. Her granddaughter was sitting beside Bo-yung on the couch, showing him a crayon drawing of a woman with a big smile and long, dark hair. The girl looked up and saw her standing there. "Grandma," she said, smiling. "Daddy didn't leave." Ellen looked at Bo-yung. He didn't say anything grand. He just reached over and took his daughter's hand in his. And for the first time since her mother died, the little girl wasn't sitting by a window, waiting for anyone to come home. She already was home.